Oh man. Today is the day. Ugh. Gearbox finally released the official DLC4 trailer. And it's scheduled to be released September 10th. We cannot wait. Oh man, it's gonna be so cool. Okay, we're gonna give you a synopsis of the trailer right now, and we're gonna break it down as much as we can in the last 2 to 3 hours. We don't have access to the trailer early, so we're gonna do the best we can with what we got right now. All right, synopsis. Okay, we have a brief synopsis right here. Okay, now we appear to be entering the mind of Krieg in order to get into Valhalla, a place that Tannis thinks is the source of all similar psycho transformations in Borderlands. She notices that they all change in a similar way, so she has the idea that the same sort of experiment and the same sort of whatever it is that is transforming them, it was applied to Krieg. He's going to end up being her key to the research. The story seems to be primarily focused on a more lighthearted and comical version of Krieg's personality. That would be his psycho side. We get the impression that the world will be really trippy, and that Krieg being insane lends itself perfectly to do anything with the plot, the visuals, and physics. It's kind of a cheap plot device, but we think it is ideal in this situation, and it works really, really well with the story and how surreal the story has to be in order for it to work. Luckily, there's also a very short scene with Maya in it, so we know she's going to be in the story. Our guess is that they're going to release a more emotional trailer, maybe like a 30-second version, closer to the release date of September 10th. And that might highlight their previous relationship and another motive for Krieg going through this entire DLC and us trying to help him. So now we're going to go over the trailer highlights, alright? This is just breaking down things as if you can't watch the trailer. I'm just going to go over things that we saw as the trailer was going through. We actually did go frame by frame, but there really isn't a whole lot. Like, there's a lot of quick cuts. So here it is quickly, okay? There's a bunch of vivid colors and exposition by Tannis, so we're thinking that might represent different emotions or something for Krieg. Maybe even different maps, who knows. Krieg is a giant, and we are going into his meat castle in one of the scenes, okay? And the meat castle, we're assuming, is going to represent his mind. Krieg, at some point, is in front of a giant locked fortress, which we think is also the meat castle. But at one point you see two versions of him staring up at it. One is red, one is blue. You also see this on the cover art, which we're going to go over later on in the video. We have timestamps in the beginning of the video as well. He buzz axes a huge lock on that fortress, but it has a rainbow glow to it. So maybe that is butt stallion powers? Who knows? There's also a statue of Krieg, and his brain is leaving it somehow in front of the fortress. Like, you see the brain kind of like do the little thing out of his brain, out of his head. And it looks like you do eventually make your way into the fortress, or at least some sort of structure large enough for a guy to ride a huge bullet missile thing through it. We see Krieg in pain on an operating table with a red hue on the scene, and maybe that represents his psycho side, and the blue side is his sane side. We're not 100% sure yet. If you look at the cover art, it's not 100% consistent. The blue version of Krieg has a bubble around his head, and it appears to actually be that he's underwater or in space, because there's a lot of floating rocks in the area. And we're thinking if he's in space, it's going to be very similar to the pre-sequel, but fans really hated the pre-sequel, so I really think it's going to be underwater, which would be a first. And oh man, that would be so cool. Alright. Lilith is then shown spreading her wings in front of a meat throne. So we know Lilith, we didn't think Lilith really died anyway, but we know she's back for this one, okay? Multiple scenes of the Vault Hunters are together, running across the bridges and shooting things, right? If you look close, these look nearly identical to the initial trailer and release of Borderlands 3 almost a year ago. Go back and look. I think it's nearly the same. They might have done a Call of Duty on us here. Also, we notice Brick and Mordecai. They're in it, but they're glowing purple. What? Yeah, and Brick is seen slamming us into the next scene where we finally see Maya. Maya has a small cameo, and you overhear narration from Krieg's sane side. The trailer ends with the cover art of the DLC and the release date of September 10th. Okay, now we're going to go into the cover art details quickly. In the very background of the cover art, you see the following: gears and car parts, a buzz axe, eyeballs, money, a chess piece. I think it could be the top of a castle, but I still think it's small enough to be a chess piece. There's some sort of skinny character. I can't really see their face. There's grubs or maggots in the back. I see random guns and knives. One gun looks definitely like a doll, like a puma or a cow. There's plenty of hypodermic needles. There are computer terminals and an actual meat bicycle. In the colorful part of the background, we see shards of random colors and images. I'll describe them as follows, okay? There's a blue shard with Krieg on the operating table. This is contradictory to what we see in the actual cinematics, where you see a red-hued Krieg in pain on an operating table. We see a purple shard, and there's clearly Athena's in the background. We see an orange shard that looks like Pandora and has a focus on a railroad track, which is most likely for his brain drain. We see another shard that seems to have a fence in it or something, and a rock cliff. It looks really... I think all the purple is Athena's, okay? Because it looks just like he was seeing it on Athena's. There's a light blue shard with floating landmasses and trees in it. And then we have another purple shard again with some more Athena's imagery in it. In the foreground, we see Tanis and Maya, and what we think is the brain train underneath them. We also see two Kriegs. One is blue, one is red. The blue one has a golden buzz axe. There's also a horse's head in a crate, which is, I'm sure that's gonna make perfect sense. Lastly, we see a sinister looking doctor with a giant needle bed thing. We are suspecting this is an origin story, and as such, this character could be Dr. Zed. If it's not, it could be an alter ego, like he went by Dr. Ned at one point, and we're guessing it could be Dr. Ted or Dr. Dead, like DED. We're not 100% sure. There's a very good chance that it will be a third Doctor, but it will still be Dr. Zed. Alright, now here's what we got wrong. Here's what we appear to have gotten wrong. There's a chance that this will be significantly more lighthearted than we were hoping for, but still love the dichotomy of those personalities and think that's going to carry the plot very far. The plot seems to be focusing on Krieg's origins and how he became different from other psychos, not revenge. The Vault Hunters seem to be helping Krieg, not trying to stop him from going full-blown crazy like we originally thought. There are no new mechanics or weapons showcased, but that doesn't mean they're not there, but we just don't have any evidence of it yet. And I'm sure there's a lot more, but we're going to move on to things that we got right, or appear to have gotten right, excuse me. So this is going to take place in Krieg's mind. It's pretty obvious, right? It's going to be very surreal, very over the top, and we have proof of that in this trailer. At 18 seconds, you can see the train pass a skyline that looks to be satellite dishes that are upside down. At 27 seconds, you see two versions of Krieg, a red and a blue one, both looking up at a statue of himself, and his head is floating in between them. At 35 seconds, you see cars and buildings floating around in the air as well. So with this plot device, anything can happen, and we already see a fortress that needs breaking into, and Krieg is a giant in some of these scenes. We think there will be a narrator in the form of Krieg's sane half, as indicated by a small Maya scene in the trailer. Maya and Athena's will be involved, so siren powers are going to be key. Lilith is not dead and makes a return. Also, if Brick and Mordecai are in this, Tina is almost certainly going to be in it as well. I'm sure there's more that we got right, we're perfect, but these are just salient points. Okay, now here we're adjusting our predictions. We still think Maya will be a factor in this DLC and an anchor into reality for Krieg throughout the DLC, but if Lilith can come back, why wouldn't Maya? I bet we find Maya in Valhalla at the end. With Lilith back, she will most likely deliver missions and exposition, but also work with Tannis and Ava to get the Vault Hunters into the mind of Krieg through their siren powers. Maurice and Tannis could work together since they're both scientists. It could lend itself to new cartel events or another Bloody Harvest. The DLC could play out like Tiny Tina's DLC, as she was a dungeon master and superimposed on her own imagination during it. This is already being suggested by Krieg's giant form and being focused on his mind. This will be an origin story. We're going to find out how Krieg became unique. But do we know he's unique? I mean, what if there are other psychos that are going through a similar transition as he is? Maybe we'll find out. The brain train will act as a sanctuary for the DLC and a fast travel station into his mind. Brick and Mordecai are in this, but they're glowing purple. Will we be able to be anointed as a new mechanic, maybe? Or are anointed enemies actually experimental psychos that lost the battle that Krieg is fighting? We think that siren powers will be a major focus and that Ava will have to overcome her depression and use her powers in an attempt to show remorse and empathy for Krieg. While we don't think it will happen, if Krieg becomes a playable character at some point, we think his action skill will involve calling in his psycho side for help, much like Zane would deploy his clone. Now that we see the predicted tone of the DLC, we're leaning more towards a happier ending, like maybe Krieg doesn't overcome his psycho side, but he can learn to coexist with it. And there we have it, our breakdown of the most anticipated DLC for Borderlands 3 so far, with as many details as we could find in about 3 hours. Please let us know what we missed or got wrong. Additionally, we'd love to read your ideas and predictions in the comments if you're interested. We cannot thank you enough for watching our DLC4 breakdown video. Please like and share if you want to, if not, that's cool too. Subscribe if you would like to see more videos like this in the future. It's completely free and it does really help the channel out. Also keep in mind, the Borderlands community is huge and very welcoming, so please check out as many of these breakdown videos as possible. There's a really good chance we missed something they may have figured out. I've already seen something from Mental Mars that I totally missed. Check them out on Twitter. Links to our sources and other great Borderlands content creators and resources will be in the description. Thanks again for watching, be well and happy farming.